right, Tony Fauci's right-hand man, EcoHealth Alliance President Dr. Peter Daszak, whose connections to China is traceable all the way back to 2014. And the evidence now makes it nearly undeniable that Daszak and Fauci worked together funding the creation of a pandemic that killed millions of people and gutted the world economy. You really can't deny it at this point when you look at all the evidence. Both were funding the study of bat coronaviruses at the Wuhan lab before COVID-19 hit. Peter Daszak is set to testify under oath in a public hearing tomorrow on Capitol Hill. This is going to be very interesting. He's going to be asked about that, the funding of bat coronaviruses in Wuhan, China, before we had the pandemic. He's likely mortified of this moment. He should be. He's also going to be asked about the Diffuse Project and why he sought federal funding to create a virus genetically similar to COVID in Wuhan. Daszak sought that funding 1 year before the pandemic hit. Then Daszak, Fauci, and members of all the agencies that they dealt with, they all just played dumb when a deadly coronavirus popped up in all places of the world. It popped up in Wuhan, China in 2019. After the pandemic hit, Daszak went to investigate the origins and found that it was highly unlikely to have come from the lab that he was funding. Yeah. These people are frauds. Everybody can see that now. Their arrogance killed millions of people, and one of them is at least going to face some kind of music tomorrow on Capitol Hill. Congressman Brad Wenstrup is the chairman of the GOP-led Select Committee tasked with investigating the origins of COVID. He's going to be leading tomorrow's hearing. And Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. I want to ask, how on earth is this man going to be able to get around some of the questions you guys are going to ask and deny the obvious here?
Well, he's going to have an opportunity to try and defend himself. You know, we've had him in, Peter Daszak, that is, the president of EcoHealth Alliance. We have had him in for a transcribed interview already. We are finding some contradictory type of statements that he has made that might not actually coincide what is the truth. Look, in this committee, tomorrow, we are going to have the Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic, as well as leadership from the Full Oversight Committee and from Energy and Commerce. We have an obligation to all the people in the world that have lost their loved ones and the loved ones that were lost, and an obligation to taxpayers who were funding some of this type of research, gain-of-function research, where you're taking a virus and making it more infectious to human beings. And that's in a nutshell, obviously a lot of science involved with that, but that's the type of work that they were doing. EcoHealth Alliance claims that their mission is to prevent pandemics, but when you are doing research that could create a virus and make it more infectious than it already was by combining different components from other viruses, then you are running the risk of creating a pandemic. And you can go back to 2011, 2012 with public statements by Dr. Collins, Dr. Fauci, and in interviews. They're asked about the risk of a pandemic. Dr. Fauci in 2012 said the benefits outweigh the risk. I think in their mind, they thought if we can create this and cure it, then we can cure anything. But we have a problem here. If you look at this whole process, the grant process, the Diffuse Project with EcoHealth Alliance, they went to DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. They went there to try and get a grant, and they were denied. They were denied because DOD said this is too risky. But what we found in their internal emails before they even applied for that grant was amongst themselves, and this includes a scientist, Dr. Shi Zhengli from China, in on the emails, Dr. Daszak saying, we'll tell them that we're going to do all the research in North Carolina, but once we get the money, then we'll shift some of it over to Wuhan. And not only shift it to Wuhan, but do it at a less safe lab, what's called a BSL-2 instead of a 3 or 4. And we'll do that there because it will cost less. So here is a person that was, through these internal emails, telling us that he was willing to deceive the federal government. But then he goes over to NIH once he's been turned down there, and he does get the grant.
Right. I don't understand. I don't understand how. You lay it all out. These guys were lying. They were manipulating. They were risking everything, and it blew up in their face. You get this pandemic, and then they, after it hits, they all lie and say, oh, well, we think it came from a bat in a wet market. how is there not something criminal here is what I don't understand. Let's show the video or pictures or video, something we have of Fauci just over the weekend, at this deadline party. He's hanging out with all the celebrities. He's so protected. The machine protects this man who so obviously subverted, regulations and funded the creation of something that killed millions of people. And he just gets to walk for all of this. I mean, is there something that you can see that could be charged here? Could this guy, could he actually face some serious consequences for what happened?
Well, lying to Congress is certainly a federal offense, and that is something that this person may face. Look, throughout our agencies, I'm afraid, we don't have any criminal liability for a lot of things people do. We've seen that within other agencies in the country and just in the last several years. But, he goes over to NIH, which is controlled by Dr. Collins, and then NIAID, Dr. Fauci, and he gets the grant there. But when we asked Dr. Fauci what the process was, he said, well, when they apply for the grant, it goes to an advisory committee, and once they approve it, all I do is sign it. And I said, well, they weren't complying with their potential to present their research to NIH on a periodic basis. And he said, well, that's in compliance. I don't have anything to do with that. And I said, well, who has oversight over an adversarial nation's lab that we are doing risky, dangerous, lethal research in? And Dr. Fauci said, I wouldn't know how to do that. We have problems.
It's amazing to me that we're seeing what Trump's in court for right now, and you have somebody like Fauci that just still gets whisked away and gets to enjoy all the fruits of being a celebrity in this country with what we have seen him do. I don't understand. And I hope that we get somewhere, and I can't wait to see him in front of you guys in June, and I hope you pick him apart. Congressman, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.